Good evening, everybody. I think we'll get started. There's 5 out of the 7 of us. I know Larry's not coming, and I don't know about Dave. So we're going to get going. And we're going to start with the ever so exciting approving of last month's minutes. Sorry we don't have a copy for everyone to look at. We'll try to be really quick with that, and then we'll move on to the rest of the agenda, which is Prospect Farm, learning about an easement versus the way it's currently protected, and discussing our plans for the summer at Jackson Falls and Prospect Farm. So we'll quickly go through our minutes from last time. Thank you.
They're mine, not theirs. I trust no one.
Any instructions?
Look at them.
No.
Great.
That's good enough.
All right.
Motion made to approve minutes.
A second. Everyone in favor? All right. Approve them unamended. Great. All right. The first item is to learn about what the difference between the way Prospect Farm is currently protected, which is the town owns it, and what would happen if we tried to put a conservation easement on it. We've had Belinda here from Upper Saco Valley Land Trust to talk a little bit about the differences in protection, maybe other towns that might have done this. I don't know if, I think Albany has done this with their town forest.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're just here to learn about what the differences are here tonight. And I assume this is what a lot of the people here are to learn about tonight and are also interested in. But if there's, well, I guess I should back up a step. If there's any public comment not on items on the agenda, we could start with that. You know, and the 2 items I think I've heard interest are the Falls and Prospect Farm. So any public comment on anything besides those 2 subjects? Great. So I don't know if you need further introduction to kind of start, or?
And thank you so much for inviting me to come to the meeting tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Just a little bit about me. I'm the land protection specialist for the Upper Saco Valley Land Trust, but I've been with the organization since we thought it was just a good idea 15 years ago, almost 16 years ago now. And so I work with landowners to see how they want to protect their property moving into the future. And most of the work we've done is with private landowners, donated easements, purchased easements, donated land and fee to us as well. We do have 2 easements that are on property owned by towns. One is the Foss Mountain property in Eaton. Our Foss Mountain project was adding 100 acres to their original Summit Foss Mountain. And then we did another 300-acre piece with called the Albany Town Forest, owned by the town of Albany. But curiously enough, most of the land is in Conway, but Conway didn't want to buy this land, and it's beautiful, it's spectacular. So we had the Albany Town Forest too. I've been a Jackson resident for over 20 years too, so I have an interest in the town of Jackson and land conservation in this area in general. And I know I'm very familiar with Prospect Farm, ski there a lot, hike there a lot, run there a lot with my dog, so I know the property. So the property is owned by the town. It was given to the town by Edith Baker in like 1942 through her will. You shared the will with me, and if I read it correctly, it's to be forever held by the town of Jackson, to be used by its inhabitants as a public park and part of a forest reserve. So that's pretty broad. And the fact that the town owns it, in that respect, it is protected. But what we could offer with the conservation easement, in addition to it being owned by the town, is what we call a belt and suspenders protection. That an easement is permanent, it's in perpetuity. Whatever you agree to, the way you'd like to see it managed in the process of negotiating a conservation easement, whatever you agree to today gets carried forward into perpetuity. we always ask our landowners to look long and hard at what they might want to do with their property 40, 50 years down the road, and, you know, make allowances for whatever you might be able to imagine. But then there's also, because you can't see what everything might come along 40 or 50 years from now, there's also an allowance within the easement that, well, says, well, we really can't anticipate everything, so there is a possibility to amend it. It involves the New Hampshire Attorney General's office. It's not an easy thing, but for something that you just didn't see, that doesn't really impact the conservation values of the property, it has either a neutral impact or it strengthens the conservation easement going forward. From there is always a possibility of amendment, but we've only done that once, and we have 43 easements, so it's not something we do every day. The other benefit of a conservation easement would be that, okay, we as the town decide this is how we want to see this property managed into the future. The Upper Saco Valley Land Trust, if that's who you chose to hold your easement, would be there as a third-party entity to make sure that those terms are upheld in perpetuity. And I can see from one of your next agenda items that you've got a little idea about easements and monitoring your easements and documenting the conditions of the property at the time of the easement donation to make sure that those terms are upheld in perpetuity. Any questions?
I have a question. So, under the easement, does the town still has ownership of the land? Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's basically just entering into like a third-party arrangement to make sure that we uphold whatever terms we come to.
Yes.
Okay. And are the terms decided on a case-by-case basis, or is there like a set of regulations that goes with putting anything into an easement?
That's a good question. We have a template, and if you've seen a Society for Protection of New Hampshire Forest Easements, mm-hmm. I think most New Hampshire easements are based on that template, and there is section like 1 through 5 is pretty much negotiable and is tailored to each property that we're protecting, like 500 acres, and we want to allow for public recreation and commercial forest management. But then there's this whole back end of it that's a lot of legal boilerplate that's less negotiable. Mm-hmm. Pam was on the board of directors for the first 5 years, so she's very familiar with our easements and the process.
Would you identify Prospect Farm as a good candidate for an easement?
Oh, absolutely.
Can you maybe explain to everybody like why that would be a good thing, like why that certain piece of land would be a good candidate for an easement?
What we do, we actually have what we call land selection criteria, and we base it on a lot of factors. This is a big piece of land, 500 acres. It's adjacent to the White Mountain National Forest. That starts bringing in large block of undeveloped habitat, which is great for all kinds of animal species. Another really key thing about this is we encourage public recreation on our easements, and this pretty much says in Edith Baker, if you want to honor. And that's what we do too. We always try to look at the donor intent. If you want to honor her intent, it was that it be enjoyed by the public, the inhabitants of the town of Jackson, or I guess you could extrapolate that to other people that visit here and they like it too. And then another key thing for us is that it's at the headwaters of the Wildcat River, the Wild and Scenic Wildcat River, and protecting that watershed, helping to protect that watershed.
That's good.
That's a good starting. Any comments or questions? Yes.
Before we jump in on this, I think the citizens of the town, I think the way it is perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the citizens of the town of Jackson shouldn't get snowed. They shouldn't be able to have their rainwater.
We're not attempting to do that. We're having this meeting tonight not to do anything, but to learn the difference between the way the land is currently protected, as held entirely by the town of Jackson, and if there'd be any additional benefit to kind of splitting up, the ownership, basically the development rights from the land ownership rights, and what that would be. So we're here tonight to learn the difference between what it looks like for the next 100 years with the town owning the property, and what it looks like for the next 100 years with the town owning the property with a conservation easement held by Upper Saco Valley or a third party. And I would see we would have to go, I believe, to the select board, and then bring it to a town meeting and vote on this, just like we would anything else. So there's, this would be 2017 before anything happened. So this is just the beginning of learning what would happen.
Yeah.
I was just curious as to how you anticipate, or maybe you do, Linda, how you would anticipate that the town would somehow change the way it now uses Prospect Farm, and how they could do that, because it would seem to be going against the wishes of the person who gave them the deed. So would you anticipate that somewhere along the line the town could violate that? And that's why we need this suspenders to the belt, along the belt?
It's hard to say. I can just sometimes imagine 100 years from now, when property is scarce and property values have soared, that somewhere somebody might think that it's a good idea to do something other than what was intended in the will.
Can you sell it?
Yeah, I guess that would be a question I have. Currently, with the town owning it and it being deeded, could the town sell it or develop it the way it's currently owned? How does it, or is that, how do we answer that question? Is that even a possibility with the town owning it outright? Because I would imagine, I don't know what strength comes with that original deed, or how we answer that question if we, need our
That would be a
counsel.
question for the attorney.
Have you read the deed?
Yes, we
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was one of the reasons we thought about this in the first place, is the deed. We thought the deed had some vague wording in it, as far as what's allowed in a public park, and how people conceive what a public park is. And we thought that years from now, someone could think of a public park much differently than how we currently think of it, whether that involves structures like a gazebo or a warming hut or whatever it might be. And those things are things that you see in parks that you don't currently see up there. So that was kind of what spurred it, I think, in the first place, is when we looked at the deed and said, oh, there's a lot of wiggle room in what this definition is.
And it is possible that you could go to court, somebody could file a petition on behalf of the town to, either eliminate the requirement or to, minimize it. I mean, there's always that possibility. If it's, say the park is left and it's been developed around it to a certain extent and it's no longer beneficial.
Would this new conservation easement allow motorized vehicles?
That's a discussion you'd have to have. I've taken my land trust hat off, my resident hat on, and user of Prospect Farm. I think that you should. I prefer the Forest Service model where foot travel is welcome, but motorized vehicle use adds a whole other layer.
Right, but by possibly going with this easement, there is flexibility in terms of, it's not just a blanket, no hunting, no motorized vehicles. Okay.
We typically like to encourage traditional land uses, and even though there isn't snowmobiling up there, many of our easements have the possibility of snowmobiling. One actually has corridor 19 going to it.
Right.
So.
To kind of, I guess, back up and maybe give a little background, I wasn't here for the meeting a couple of falls ago, when we were kind of asked to develop rules for Prospect Farm after it was unclear to town staff about which residents could get the key to Prospect Farm for which purposes, is it to drive, to go up there and car camp next to your car. And so we had that whole process of basically not coming up with rules and more or less, I believe, going with, we're going to do what we've always done. But before that, another thing that had come up is Jackson Cross Country had a donor approach them wanting to build a warming hut, and this donor had identified potential places around Jackson, both owned third party or by Jackson Cross Country, and they had identified Prospect Farm as one that they would maybe like to approach the town for the idea of building a structure up there. And we were generally, as a board, against that, but it never came up because Jackson never pursued this, Jackson Cross Country. So that's one of the things that started this idea of what are the current legal protections on Prospect Farm from development that the town does or does not want. How do we identify what those legal protections are, and do we want to increase them to maintain it more or less as it is with things as they currently are? You know, is how I would see this going forward. Is potentially a conservation easement would basically keep Prospect Farm the way it is, but potentially increase protection if we didn't want to see development mainly being structures, which is kind of what I picture. And I guess we'd have to, find an attorney who give us a better opinion on the current protections.
Couldn't you leave it the way it is and put something like that on the town warrant to be voted on? No structures or something, without putting in conservation easement.
It's also
But
an
then
option.
can that be overturned?
That can be
At
changed.
some point, that
Yeah.
can be
At another town meeting, right?
Yeah.
Right. I think
That's my concern.
I think part of what, like Tom brought up with the Jackson Ski Tour idea, I think that might be one of the things that make people really start looking at. So now someone has a gift of a building, they're going to pay for it. Would people start to sway, seeing that we're basically getting something for free, but who,
Nothing's
different.
free.
Right. Well, exactly. That's what we're trying to say. So once we saw energy starting to move in one direction with that, we thought it's probably important to find out what the people want. Is it worth protecting? Because if someone presented that, a large group of people might go for it, and then there is a structure up there. So we're just looking into it, like Tom said, how
And
to
that is-
protect it.
Yeah, and that is one of the routes we could take, is to just have the warrant article to not allow structures to be built up there. You know, we could, out of this process, decide to do that as a form of protection. I imagine it would be weaker than a conservation easement. Could be, the next group of residents could help, overturn the vote a couple years down the road.
Is there hunting up there now?
Yes, there is.
Because I know that I have seen tracks up there to take animals out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, currently
you say motorized vehicles.
Currently, residents can get a key to drive up there, and mostly I've only ever seen it people going to get game out in the fall. But it is allowed, and it's just following the hunting rules of the state of New Hampshire. Yep.
I just had a question. As somebody who has hunted there for 30 years and in 2011 was fortunate enough to take a moose off of that property, my question is, it would seem to me that regardless of maybe what the town wants 50 years from now or 100 years from now, what really needs to be analyzed is what the donors' intentions were when they left that property to the town. And I think that needs to be really very clear and understood, so that the person who left this property to the town, no doubt, was pretty concise on what they wanted done with that property or not. And I guess my concern is that needs to be uphold first and foremost above what anybody wants. I mean, that's it. If I gift something to somebody with the intent that it be done or it be handled in a certain way, that's imperative. And warming huts and vehicles and all that need to be taken into consideration based on what was that person's real intent.
Yeah. Well, I guess I agree with the intent, but I kind of wonder if I'm separate from the intent. To some degree, maybe the intent doesn't matter once the gift is given. I don't know those legal points of once the gift has been given to the town, if the town could essentially turn around and say, thank you, that was great intent, we want to do this other thing. And that's one of the questions I have personally, is if the town could choose to ignore the intent of the gift.
And my second part of the question is there any disadvantage to the town? In other words, does the town itself lose any control or lose any direction as to what gets done with this property by entering into an agreement with you folks? Is there anything, do we have anything to lose? Do we forfeit anything? Or is it just nothing but a plus for us? And if so, what are those pluses?
Well, you do give up, if, once a conservation easement is in perpetuity, except for the part where you can amend it if you go to the New Hampshire Attorney General's office and it doesn't compromise the conservation values you're trying to protect, but once you enter into it, you should just consider it's in perpetuity. So what you agreed to today is the way the property would be managed going forward. So in that respect, you do give up control.
So then I guess my third question would be, legally, do we have the right to enter into a land trust with you
As
it was gifted? I mean, yeah, as a town, as it was gifted. I mean, is that, I mean, can somebody come back and say, the person who left that left it to the town, not to the town and Upper Saco Valley District or Land Trust. This was town property, and now it's kind of town property, but that's not how it was left.
It's still town property.
Okay.
Yeah, even when we deal with private property owners, and it's still their property, their responsibility, but now they have to be sure that moving forward, they act in accordance to the terms of the easement. However, I believe any easement that we would come up with would pretty much support any activity that's been going on out there already. We support traditional land uses like hunting, public recreation. If you felt it was appropriate to allow limited motor vehicle use, that can be in the easement too. Those are points of negotiation.
Right, so it could, in theory, be exactly the same, but someone else has helped to monitor.
What you might lose is the ability to construct a building up there, if the easement says no buildings.
It's just a little more permanent, I guess, is my kind of understanding on it. That like it's a little more permanent than say a warrant article because it cannot be overturned.
Exactly.
By the townspeople.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I guess that's something to consider that I never thought of, that in the future, could a gifted piece of land be sold by the town if the town owns it? Like, they've been talking about this property, the town
Right.
bought this property, but, gift versus something we bought. I've heard many people talk about selling the back half of this or whatever,
Right.
but,
Developing.
so is there something you could do to say it could never be sold in
Well,
the future? Or are you saying that the town could just write a warrant article and overturn that in the
There's the
future?
deed.
My understanding is even with a warrant article, if the town decided to sell the piece of property, all restrictions from the original gift go away once you sell it, is kind of my understanding of deeded restrictions, is that they go away once it's been sold, and that I believe the town has the ability to sell the land how they see fit. But with a conservation easement, it goes with the physical property. So you've kind of separated owning the physical property from the development rights to the property. So if the town put a conservation easement on the property, if the town decided to sell Prospect Farm to a private landowner, those restrictions of no buildings would go along with the property. I mean, I can't imagine the town ever selling Prospect Farm, but
No, but like Linda says, you never know in 100 years
Right.
what things look like and what, I never even thought of that. Like Richie says, it was gifted forever, but once you give it to the town, I suppose the town could do
Right.
whatever.
that's kind of the
Regift
question I have, and the point where I kind of move towards the conservation easement is that depending on, I guess, the opinion we get, is that the town could choose to not follow the intent or the wishes of the gift, either by changing how the town manages it and what it builds on it or not, or selling it outright. And then there's no control anymore at all by the town.
So would a broad, safe statement be to say, in order to uphold its current situation and the way it appears now, that it makes sense to enter into a conservation easement? It gives us more protection to maintain it as a true wild area rather than, or not?
It's
Is that a
more-
fair statement?
A conservation easement on the property would provide more protection than just
Okay.
the terms of the gift.
Okay.
From Mrs. Baker.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yep, George?
Hey, John, how, once this goes forward, how is the will of the people in the town? How can they express their needs and what they would like to do as we go forward, 50 years from now?
With an easement? Or, once we decide now, my understanding of the easement is we've given up those rights. So the town can't get those development rights back if we go with the easement route. so I view it as following the intent by stopping development there, essentially. But I don't think there's a way to get those rights back unless, the land trust. So, yeah.
Once it's in conservation, it's in conservation, correct? Now, if it goes in, do we have to have it all surveyed? I believe that's how you work.
The president of our board is actually a surveyor with AGB Engineers, and he may be able to answer that question. I have not seen, is there a survey of the property?
We recently had.
We surveyed one line.
Yeah.
And the rest is White Mountain National.
National Forest, so
Right.
there may be enough
That you can do a
Should be.
composite.
documentation from other surveys that,
If it's going to change ownership at all, the deed is going to be, owner of the deed is going to be changed, that property, the entire property will have to be surveyed. Speaking as a surveyor, I don't do private surveying, but I will tell you, if the deed changes at all, the deed description on the deed ownership, it will have to be surveyed.
the reason I say I would talk to Doug first is because he has an amazing amount of records in his office because his father was a surveyor before him, so he's forever going into his files and saying, look what I've got.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I know we did pay, I think,
Yeah,
2
one
years
line.
ago to have the one our
Lines.
line that wasn't National Forest
Okay.
reblazed, and so
Now, would you charge for monitoring?
at the time of an easement donation, we typically set aside some money to make sure that we have the resources to monitor an easement in perpetuity, as well as enforce an easement. If for some reason somebody tried to break the terms of the easement and we go to court, that would be very expensive. That's not happened yet, but we're prepared to do it. So we do set aside some money every time.
So they're charged every year?
No, it's a one-time fee, and it depends on the size of the property, the difficulty of monitoring and access, what we call reserve rights to do future things like build a warming hut here or a barn over there, or, reserve rights are something that you reserve the right to do at some point in the future. Typically, that's contributed from the donor at the time of the easement donation. However, if you didn't feel that you had the capacity to do that as the town, I don't think we'd have any trouble fundraising for the stewardship, what we call the stewardship fund contribution for this easement.
How much money is it typically?
It ranges from 5,000 to 10,000 or so. We have
5,000 to what?
10, and it's a one-time thing that we do set aside for long-term protection.
Great. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Linda.
Great. I'm going to skip a little bit in the agenda and go into reviewing we hope to this summer put up some signs at Prospect Farm, little interpretive signs by the cellar holes, and maybe a couple other ones on ecological history. So we've been working on that, but I'm going to move that to the end of the meeting. Maybe get to the falls discussion, I think, 'cause that's the next thing of interest to everyone. So I'll skip over the interpretive signs and our easement and go to Jackson Falls to kind of, I guess, start with what we've been doing for the last couple years is trying to reduce erosion at Jackson Falls. And we mainly see it as a problem in the summertime of people parking wherever they want to, walking wherever they want to, and then more or less the ground is compacted. There aren't designated trails, and anytime there's a heavy rain, there's a lot of erosion going on in the falls. We're worried that eventually a lot of the soil between the road and the falls will go away. So what we've been working is to plant small species to kind of grow up there, try to get people to walk on designated paths, designate those paths with wood chips. We put up signs to try to get people to enter at only specific points and walk on one trail parallel to the falls. Basically, we're trying to channel all of those visitors in those 4 months onto like one pathway and one access point from each parking area. is our vision. And we are going to hopefully continue to work on that this summer by putting more wood chips on. And we would like to put up a new, potentially a kiosk, either maybe similar to the little metal ones down by the lower falls and interpretive displays, or one of the wooden ones, a small wooden one that stands up with kind of user guidelines for the falls to encourage people to take their trash with them, explain some of the history of the falls, the Wild and Scenic River designation, some of the ecological history of a river area. And also we've been talking about, in addition to the designating parking areas, is another way to funnel people onto the trails is to maybe put up some wooden fences. It's one of the ideas we had. We've been doing it with string. Everyone's probably seen this over the last 2 summers. We've got little stakes up there, oak stakes with string, where people are cutting down the steep hills. And the idea is to funnel them to these 3 main access points, one on the corner, one at the handicap spot in the middle, and the other down at the large parking spot at the end, and then another one up on Valley Crossroad. So we would ideally like to see people getting to the falls, going down these 4 little short paths, and then walking on one path parallel to the falls. And no matter what, it seems to be what we do up there in terms of putting brush where we don't want people to walk down steep hillsides, or putting up the strings or signs. People are walking wherever they want. They park their car, they parallel park. You know, there's the signs that say you can't be on the road, so they park their car on the dirt. So the first 10 feet of dirt is highly compacted immediately off the road. People cut down immediately to wherever they're going, and those little paths are highly compacted as well. So we're trying to reduce the number of highly compacted areas, have regrowth in the area, and get people on these 4 main access points and a trail. And we've been working maybe on content for a sign, where we put it, what it would look like, how big it would be, that kind of thing.
Good.
Any comments, I guess, on what we've been doing, or what the plans are for our summer, and where it is?
Well, I appreciate all you guys who work on boards, because I know it's a lot of time, but I have to say, as somebody who goes there often, I was really taken aback when I first saw the wood chips up there. I thought somebody cut down trees and left a mess. And my first impetus was to not walk on those. I don't know if there's anything you can use instead of that, small quarter-inch rock or something different from wood chips. Wood chips are going to blow away. The tough thing about Jackson Falls is, there's so many people entering at so many different spots. I almost wonder if I think parking is more of an issue than keeping people on path. To me, it's very obvious where the paths are up there. I don't think you're ever going to stop knuckleheads from going where you don't want them to go. My concern coming here tonight was that I was really upset by what's up there now.
Okay.
So when I saw the minutes that you plan on more stuff, sign, a kiosk, fences, I just thought we should have a discussion about that.
Well, to start with the wood chips.
We probably should have done another idea of explaining why there were wood chips, maybe put it in town minutes or something. But you want to talk about why they're there?
So we actually had, I forget his name, as well as Greg Howard come and look at the falls and make recommendations and action plans to reduce erosion up there, which included, there's the new steps coming down from the large parking area, the large stone steps there. There's check dams. There's that new parking spot in the corner that can fit 4 cars. So the steps we've taken so far have been at his recommendation. When we've taken this plan to the select board and showed them what he said, and that's what we've worked on. And the wood chips were his recommendation to build up the pathways. Maybe people normally would do it with gravel and a mix of wood chips, what I've seen in landscaping, because the gravel stays. He actually, as part of that, wanted us to put wood chips over the whole area, because more or less the entire area between the road and the falls is eroded. It's not as it would be. There's no duff layer. It's all compacted soil, because people, as you say, are just running from their car to the river. So he had recommended putting wood chips more or less everywhere, and then additional wood chips on the paths and the picnic tables and places where people congregate, to try to reduce soil impaction on those areas where we expect and want high traffic. and then put the wood chips where we don't want traffic at all to try to give the soil a chance to come back, so we don't have to wait the next 20 years for all the leaf litter to fall down and make a new soft layer of soil on top.
And he basically recommended that we put the chips down to protect the roots
Yeah,
of the trees. So that's that's what we're trying to do, is to cover the roots up.
I have lived here almost 55 years, and the roots have looked the same at the falls. They really have. Do you agree? You've lived here all your life.
Yeah, I mean, I just worry. Yeah, after I forget the big tropical storm.
You got a little erosion from Irene, but basically they have not changed.
There was quite a bit of erosion from Irene when those two trees came
Here's
down.
some pictures if you want to look at them.
Sure, that'd be great.
This is actually amazing. And my comment when I saw this picture was how the falls look just the same, and how it would be a shame to have them change too much.
Yeah.
They can see where it used to be.
Yeah. The pools. Yep. So I worked a couple years on a trail crew. And it does to me look eroded and highly impacted, and it is someplace I would like to see not overrun with people in the summertime. Another example I could, a place that I compare it to that I think sees way more traffic is the top of Cathedral Ledge. And I don't know if anyone's been up there, say 5 years ago versus the last summer. But what the state park did up there is there's that parking area right at the top of Cathedral Ledge where it used to be you parked wherever you wanted. They more clearly designated what were parking spots. They put up a small cedar fence and a sign to have people go in one spot. That's something we were thinking about.
Do you ever go to the falls in the middle of summertime?
I try not to, but I drive by it every day.
You try not to?
Yeah.
Because there's so many damn people, and mostly out-of-towners.
Yep.
Why don't you think of a way of limiting the number of people?
If the town wanted something like that, that is something the town could do.
You could have parking just for residents and guests of the hotel inns, because it's really I used to love to swim there, but now you cannot enjoy it anymore. Crystal Lake has banned outsiders. Silver Lake you can't go to anymore, so we should protect ourselves that way too.
Yeah.
Well, we are supposed to have no parking on Valley Cross.
I can't hear you. What?
We're supposed to have no parking on Valley Cross. We're just waiting for the signs. So that would eliminate that, because that's also a traffic hazard.
I would also like to see no parking on Carter Notch Road.
It would be interesting to do a survey of the people there. Has anybody ever counted the number of people during a heavy vacation time?
Yeah, we could definitely do a survey of town.
It's unbelievable.
We also have access to the new Jackson Ski Touring parking lot.
That's more people.
But if you took them off Carter Notch.
Yeah, so part of the plan we've been working with for the last 2 years is to more or less reduce the parallel parking on the sides of the road, try to concentrate it in those head-in only parking areas. Jackson Ski Touring has said that people can park in their new lot on Valley Cross Road as an overflow lot. Part of what I would like to see on a map of the falls is, welcome to Jackson Falls, et cetera, but also show you where to park. So if, to say we kept it the way it is, you could drop people off and you could drive down to the village and maybe park by the old town hall or over by here by the library lot, and the one person could walk off. We'll kind of educate people as to where parking should happen, how it should happen, what they should, hopefully to direct that traffic out the falls, kind of is the current approach, in order to maintain it the best we can. And reducing traffic would be one way to do that. Yeah.
So where are you guys thinking about building fences?
The two areas that we have seen people still continuing to jump out of their cars and go straight to the falls, where we would not like to see it and like to see vegetation come back, is in the large parking area where there are now the 3 kind of access points to the falls. There's a straight staircase and one at each end. People still get out and literally push those little rope fences down and walk over them and walk to the falls, and that's a very steep embankment that's just barely growing up since the town crew put it in a couple years ago. So that would be one area. that we would like to put a fence if we were to do this, and maybe keep it there for 5 years, let whatever the vegetation grow up until it gets to a point where people don't want to walk through it and they are channeled into those walkways, then take the fence away. The other spot that we considered is basically from there's the handicap spot, from there to the corner lot of Valley Crossroad. That's also a very steep side, so just a fence right there, so that if people park in that area, they're forced to either go to the access point by the handicap spot or go up to the corner and then walk down that new staircase that's up there. So they're no longer walking down that 6-foot section of whatever it is, 40-degree hillside to get down to that little upper pool area.
Are we required to have a handicap spot up there?
I don't know.
Because it seems like not necessary, but only because literally, if you're handicapped, I can't see the difference between entering there or anywhere else up there. Am I wrong?
I don't know.
I've walked by it a million times and thought, it's kind of a shame that when nobody needs this spot, it's a spot.
Isn't it sloped though? I think the path is sloped from the handicap spot down to the falls rather than a staircase. So if that might help.
It's a little steep.
The same spot as the emergency?
No, the emergency one is separate. There's the ambulance spot,
right,
and then that one. I guess that would be another question for the town attorney, but I believe in general public areas are required to be accessible.
And I think people are a little worried sometimes when they hear the word fence. And I just, we want to remind people this isn't the Rio Grande. We're not talking like wall. We're the word fence, I think, is kind of loaded. And I think people hear fence and they get a little nervous over what that might look like. And we want you to know this isn't like a privacy fence or anything like that. We're not talking about a 10-foot structure. We're talking about trying to mitigate erosion. We're trying to channel people. And I think that, anytime there's change, people get a little nervous. And, just want to reiterate, we have been working with the soil scientists, and those, the recommendations we've been following are based on this management plan. And none of us are soil experts, and so that's why we went and talked to one and hired one to do this work. So, I think it's good to know that we're not just going out there slapping things up. We really are trying to take a slow approach, and we are really trying to work on mitigating what's a lot of damage. It is. I have not lived here my whole life, but I do know what erosion looks like, and it's severely eroded, and in some sections.
But there have been thousands of people coming. That's why he brought those pictures, because you could see the usage that this has historically had. And actually, there's less people using it now than there used to be, I think.
I think when you look at this photo, I think a lot of the vegetation on the larger trees are the same on the side, but you can't see the
paths on the
ground
side.
vegetation, the paths, the cover, the blueberries. You can't see that in this photo. So I think to look at it and say that it stayed the same this is just a little too zoomed out. We have to look at what actually. I mean, I haven't seen the other photos yet.
Also, we need the plan we need the plan for a possible increase of use too. I mean, what if it gets twice as many people now? Because there's definitely more people using it.
One of the things we should really think about is we have all these policemen in town now that they spend more time really up there. There's no reason why they shouldn't be up there.
Exactly.
I think they can help people park. I think they can make sure people aren't leaving trash. I drive by here often and there's 2 cops on at the same time, so it seems like that makes more sense to me than some. I have to say, and I appreciate the work that you guys are doing, but I go up there all the time with those strings with the laminate signs. I understand what you're trying to do, but I just thought, oh my God, these wood chips look terrible. I understand George is an expert, he's a great guy, but is there something else that we can do up there?
Well, time. I think it looks better now than it looked when the wood chips first went down. I mean, it's definitely starting to naturalize and
But when I read that you were going to put more down, I was like, ugh, they just look so bad. They don't look natural.
Yeah.
Yeah, but...
And I think it's a hard spot because it's, it's viewed as a natural area, but it's more truly like a park, I would say, than Prospect Farm, and that there's such a high usage there that I don't know to what degree we can maintain it as a natural area with that high use, which gets kind of to that question of, do you want to restrict use? But I don't know that it's a natural area, and maybe not a succeeding natural area. I kind of like to think, what if all those giant pines went away? You know, there's not much understory. Like, what would happen if those big pines came down in a storm? What would grow up to take their place? What would keep that 30 feet of soil in some spots between the road and the falls from going away? And how can we maintain it as it is and protect that resource of access to the falls and the soil around it and the vegetation there?
That's kind of nature. I mean,
it is nature, but it's nature being loved to death to a certain degree.
Not with a paved road pitched towards the falls.
You know,
it's not nature.
what do you mean?
Well, paving a road on a hillside with pitch towards the river isn't nature. And we've changed the flow of water, culverts taking water and then putting them back at the falls isn't nature.
And the compaction, you know, affects the ability to absorb.
Well, the reason that tree might fall is because it's being undermined or the root system's been destroyed because people are walking on the shallow roots and the roots are exposed. And, I mean, that's nature to some degree, but...
You had an expert come in, and I'm not familiar with who it is, but I know that there are always a variety of options. So if those large wood chips are offensive to people, and I don't love them either. I know I know that guy didn't come in and say this is the only thing that can happen.
Yeah, I guess,
It would be good too. I know you guys are, feeling picked on right now because we don't like the wood chips.
That's fine.
But normal.
Yeah, some way to designate. I mean, the two goals, as I see it, are to
possibly would be good to look at some options.
Yeah, as long as
I think cost effectiveness.
It was budget.
Was definitely.
They were donated by someone in town who was cutting trees. So yeah, you could get a finer size chip. You could mix it with something, but there's a cost to it. And since there seems to be so much energy to change that, maybe we can get people to pitch in and help.
Another option that I'm just making up in my head is possibly enhancing the growth that's there versus
that's
just the protection, doing soil enhancement versus just covering it.
Yeah.
Is that a possibility?
Have you done any seeding?
We've done a lot of seeding.
We have done seeding. Immediately around the parking areas, we've seeded with a conservation mix. Last spring, we planted something like 80 seedlings in high erosion areas. We're going to do that again this year.
We hope to see you all there. It's a volunteer thing. It's open to everybody. We're all be excited to bring your work gloves.
One of the recommendations, which we haven't done yet, would be to put down almost topsoil in addition to scarifying the soil and then putting down the conservation mix to try to get the conservation mix to take, and then getting into the questions of how often do we mow it, when do we mow it, what level of understory do we want to kind of protect that soil resource versus channel people to the falls, and primarily having people, I kind of see it as getting people from the parking areas to the rocks of the falls, and not much hanging out in between.
And we initially hit a roadblock with asking the town to not mow it. So we were asking can we allow this to just grow? Will you please not mow everything, Let's find some paths, have people walk down the paths, to just mow that, not the other areas. But there's been a broad mow technique that just recently has been adjusted, would you say?
Mm-hmm.
Sort of.
Yeah.
We're not there yet.
Try not to cut the ferns down and that sort of thing.
Also, the road crew just wouldn't...
it was a broad...
And then what happens is when you cut it down, and everybody goes, ooh, I can go
Right.
down over it, and then you've got huge erosion paths. I have pictures of that.
Problem.
Yeah.
Right. Multiple times.
No pun intended.
I wanted to second, Tom, what you were saying about we can't be under the illusion that this is a wild and scenic area. It's like a beach, and we don't allow people to walk on the dune grass. It's generally pretty clearly marked why we're not supposed to walk on the dune grass if you ever go to the ocean. And the paths down to the beach are pretty well marked. So I don't imagine there's too many of our visitors or even people who live in town who would be very pressed to understand some educational signs to keep people out of the blueberries and onto the paths. it's all over the country, and this is not a wild and scenic zone. If they want to go to a wild and scenic river, they're going to hike in and hopefully have no one else there. But this is town beach, basically.
Yeah.
And I think it is a town park, and people respect fencing that's not string, so I think people will respect like wooden fencing more because it looks like it's being controlled like a park.
Can I ask exactly what the fencing was? I mean, because if it's this high, the kids are going to want to walk on it. That's going to be a treat.
Yeah.
I mean, are you talking about like...
What we currently have, are the garden stakes with green garden twine in between them.
I've seen that.
Yeah, and what we're thinking would be basically split rail fencing, some kind of cedar.
Relatively low.
And the idea is temporary, so that when things grow up, you can take the fencing out.
Yeah, so ideally the fence would be there for, the 5 to 10 years or whatever it would be that would take that area to grow up, have some kind of brushy understory rather than either mowed or nothing, and then take the fences away and just let the vegetation do its job of channeling people to those main access points from the corner, in the middle, and at the parking lot, and getting them down to the falls.
We did have, I'd say, a pretty spirited discussion years ago about this, and we really identified this is front country. As you've said, I mean, this is not a backcountry setting. It's surrounded by lots of roads, lots of houses. It is a front country setting, and so when we decided to look at this idea of whether it's signs or limit parking or whatever it is, we viewed it more in the sense of a park, a town park. It's not necessarily a wild and natural area. While we want to try and maintain some of that, like when you look at the species list from last month's minutes, we are working towards that and revitalizing natural areas within it. But as far as any kind of sign or fencing or those kind of things, we are trying to keep in mind that it is a front country area that has front country problems versus a back country area.
Can you tell us what the signs, what a kiosk is in your...
We haven't answered that question ourselves. We're at the point where we kind of have a broad outline of topics we would like to see discussed there for visitors. We haven't talked about exactly what shape or form it would take, and then we would cut. Our steps forward from here would be to come up with a proposal, go to the select board, and kind of get buy-in before we do any of these large steps like fences and a sign. But the range I see for kiosks would be a small wooden kiosk, the little ones with the shingle roofs. You can put a map or whatever on the front, information on the back. Either that or something more expensive but less visible, which are like those metal signs down by the snow roller across from the Wentworth. So those are more expensive than a wooden sign, which we could build, cheaper materials, but kind of that range is what I envisioned for a kiosk. And the subject material, what we brainstormed so far was kind of like a welcome to a falls, a little discussion of the the Wildcat River and its wild and scenic designation, because it is a wild and scenic area, and that particular part of it is the village part of it. Some education on that designation, brief rules, like no littering, please take away what you brought here, that sort of thing. And then social history of the falls, including photos like this, how it's been used in the past, the swimming pools down at the bottom, maybe a little bit of natural history highlighting the species there, that sort of thing. And also this, kind of the parking map as part of it, like where you can park, access points to the falls. One thing I would like to see is users use the lower falls more. I feel like compared to the number of people that go to the upper falls, if more people went to the lower falls and took that walking path, maybe we could spread the use out a little bit and not have the top get hammered so much and make us have all this effort into fences and trails and all of that. So that's kind of the broad outline, and that's where we are, but we haven't, this meeting, or I guess now the next meeting would be kind of flushing that out, making our proposal and bringing it to the select board.
I'm sure the DeVellians would love to see people not in their backyard.
Yeah, I mean, it's public access to the lower falls. And I guess it's a question whether we want to advertise it or not, but it is a public way.
Well, I think we probably would all agree that if the signage was not more natural, like the AMC kind of, not the kiosk that just got put on at Valley Crossroads is very big and
Yeah.
not, I can see it there, but I couldn't see something like that at the falls.
So what, I guess, what would be something that you would see there?
Just something more natural looking, that's not as big as that.
Mhm.
The other thing I think that's an issue is where people are entering at different places, that a lot of people would miss a kiosk.
Yeah. And that's something
What do you-
we've talked about. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, what do you think of the signs that we put up this fall or summer? They're the little square ones that are posted at each entry point. Have you seen those? They're just little square ones that say, "Welcome to Jackson Falls. Please stay on designated paths. Carry in, carry out." I can't remember. There were 3 things.
Enjoy your visit.
I'm just curious what
I don't want
everybody
to bum you
thought.
out, but I have not seen those signs.
Okay.
And I'm there a lot. All I saw were the strings with the
laminated ones?
Yeah.
Well, these ones we had printed up professionally.
I'll
and-
look. I'll go look at them.
Let us
Are they
know
still
what you think
there?
of them.
They are still there. And the idea with those signs is we put one at the head of each of what we see as the main access points to the falls, and what we would like those to be the only access points, and close down all of the other little cut paths to the river. So there's one of these "Welcome to the Falls" sign at each of what we envision being the main access points to the falls, to get you to that parallel trail right next to the falls, and then the falls themselves. So it's both the size and the materials that you don't like with the Valley Crossroad. The kind of like the PT look is not what you want.
Yeah, and when we went to Diana's Bath, I mean, you know, they're big, they're
Mhm.
in your, they're just, I do think that's, yes, it's
like a-
become a public beach, but it's also, to me, it's still very natural and wild and, you know, something that isn't so man-made looking-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we could use, like use cedar shingles or other natural materials to
Yeah.
kind of tone it down. Or, so I guess wood maybe is better than metal in that case. And we can make them smaller. And kind of getting to your question of like, would people see a kiosk? I hope perhaps that people who are unfamiliar with the area would be drawn to it. And potentially, and this is something we haven't flushed out either, is if we could encourage a drop-off zone, maybe either at that handicap spot or at the spot that's reserved for ambulance parking. Put the kiosk near a drop-off zone so that if you come up there and the place is full of cars, you see the drop-off point, you see the kiosk, it's got the map of other parking areas, kind of the rules, everyone goes in and has a picnic, and someone drives off and parks somewhere else. So hopefully it could kind of center unfamiliar visitors to one spot if we had it. We could keep the small signs at the other trailheads for a period of time, and then eventually, same as the fences, maybe it all goes away once it's grown up a little bit and everything's a little more clear to the the uneducated eye, because it's not everybody who can tell a hiking trail from forest.
And to go off of that, I think a big part of the kiosk is the education piece, and so that when people arrive, not just to keep them on the designated paths, but also just give them a few guidelines so that they take care of it, so that it does continue to be a nice place for everybody to go to.
Unfortunately, I mean, doing a lot of traveling to the national parks, all the information you put out, you're not going to stop littering, you're not going to stop people from cutting off the trail. And possibly the only thing you can do, I mean, in Sanibel, they charge you $3 an hour to park at the beach. But the more limited the parking means the fewer access points there are. And people are lazy. They get out of their car, they're going to walk straight down. If you limit the parking, they have to park in those spots, and if they're going to walk down, they're going to walk out of the parking lot. Otherwise, they're going to have to walk up from another direction.
Yeah.
And if you got entrance there, so if you cut down on the parking more, possibly,
Yeah.
you're never going to stop it completely.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, to some degree, that's the area, the direction we've moved. That large parking lot is the same size, but it's been improved over the last 2 to 3 years with the staircases. And then there's the new parking lot on the corner. Theoretically, there's no parking on Valley Crossroad anymore as part of this plan. They're trying to bring people around to that parking lot on the corner. And then we could foresee possibly, in the future, no parking between the corner and the handicap drop-off area where we are proposing to put the fence, or will propose to put the fence. So the parking would either be at the corner, at the main lot, and then maybe a couple of parallel spots right by the handicapped area.
And at Lower Falls as well.
Well, you could also have limited parking, 2 hours.
Yep. Yeah.
And that way more people can use it, and you haven't got people, because it's a disadvantage for locals, but I know we haven't been able to go for years because you can't get a parking spot unless you're right at Lakestown.
Yeah, and I guess part of it too is the management piece. Like, I don't know how much, the more like, I don't like a lot of rules in general, and then you need someone there to enforce them, or, kind of the public safety versus stopping erosion part of it. Because I imagine at some point all those no parking signs went up, or no parking on pavement signs went up because the roads are clogged, and then more or less is forced parking onto the dirt on the side of the road. And now we have the soil compaction on the edge of the road. So maybe it's just a continuation of that process.
But would you use the new parking lot that the Jackson Ski Touring put in?
I think that's a great idea.
So you'd be willing to use that, you think?
But people are still, they're going to have to walk down, and if they walk down, they're going to take the first path that's right there, close to the bridge. They're not going to walk around the corner.
That's
true. They're going to take the closest access. And if they have to jump over a small fence, they're going to do it.
Or cut through the ferns?
Yeah, but we planted some pretty good shrubs on that first path.
Still might.
It just needs a little time to.
Some blackbirds need to be planted.
Yeah, I mean, but that's.
Poison ivy. I was going to say, just poison ivy signs.
So.
Great. We talked about poison ivy and ticks, right? With the warning signs up.
The snake pit.
Yeah, I like the snake pit.
Yeah.
All right. Any other broad thoughts or questions on the falls and what we could do to make it nice for all of us?
Talk about parking where the beaver pond is.
Above that.
Yeah, you can't. There's no parking at the beaver pond.
So
fire
who owns that?
I don't know who owns it, but you can't park.
I think that's Kendall.
It's a fire pond.
Yeah, because you have to have the fire trucks get in there.
Because I'm just thinking that if we start pushing people up to that parking lot, which is actually far for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's like 0.2 of a mile.
Like the drop-off, they probably have, but it's almost like someone's going to have to be there to tell them what to do. You know what I mean? I don't know. Just that's an awfully far parking lot. I think people might be more up to.
It's flat.
But you almost have to tell them where it is, because I don't know if they're going to read the sign and not say this is where you can park.
We talked about putting a sign just on the corner, just said additional parking with an arrow.
Yeah.
But I think they'll stop at the beaver pond. I think
and they'll get a ticket.
That's what it
And
is.
I think the beaver pond says no parking.
Posted pretty clearly that there's no parking at the beaver pond.
They could do that now anyway. Park at the beaver pond and get a ticket.
Yeah.
We're not changing anything. We don't even have to tell them that the other parking lot's there. It's just an option.
And it definitely is a walk, but I think if that's the only option,
they should walk.
People will do it.
But it is flat.
Yeah. But
And we have a
it's better than
problem at
walking
the
up from
falls,
the
and that's a partial solution.
Yeah, and it does seem to be the closest, because the next closest lot, I guess, that we would encourage people to go to is the old town hall.
Right,
On the hill, the old town hall. So they'd have to come around and go up to the falls. But maybe we'd have, I don't know, a different type of visitor. Anything else on our ideas or thoughts for the falls, or thoughts you have about what you'd like to see there? All right, great. That's lots of good input. Definitely will help us decide what it is we would like to do. All right. What's next? What's next? The rest of our meeting is, well, I guess maybe we'll push on. We're going to talk briefly about our progress in interpretive signs up at up at Prospect Farm. So if people are interested in hearing about our ideas for the signs of Prospect Farm, please stay. But if not, I don't know if those are 2 items people are most interested in.
Thanks for moving us on.
Sure thing.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
All right, Margaret, let's talk about our neon blinking signs. Not everyone's leaving.
You don't want us to stick.
It just says what a moose track looks like,
Well, I guess solution just closed the whole place down.
That would be great. Feeling sandwich.
Thanks for the pictures.
Locals only. It is an option.
Sure. close it all.
Or just make it locals only.
Can you imagine?
No, that sucks. That's not Rich, we have any bacon?
Rich, we have some of those anyway. I know.
Thank you.
Thank you, B. We'll get to the bottom of it. I think we can. Oh, yeah. Yeah, right. All those people downstairs.
I want you to see that, to see what the news do.
Yeah.
I was amazed the first time I saw the pictures of the swimming pool. That blew me away when I saw that picture.
But I think
That's a great idea.
Wow. Is that George?
When are you going to come build some steps?
I know.
Don't give me.
I hired Pam as an apprentice.
To do what?
To build stairs.
Don't give me this.
You still haven't found anyone?
No, I've been waiting for you. I understood that you were the treatment.
I'm like just 10 months out before I can do anything. Honestly. I mean, that's not true, George.
Come by
If
and look
things
at it.
slow
I'll tell you
down,
what it is. Come by and look at it.
I would like to come by regardless of stairs or no stairs.
You may have trouble getting out. No, come on by and take a look. See what you think.
Okay.
Okay. It's not a big deal.
Alrighty.
Okay.
Thanks. Good seeing you.
So I wanted to see what.
Yeah.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, B. We have at some point for you cultural trip up there. We did well. Yeah. Trapped downtown. Yeah, that was well done. All right.
The woman who was sitting next to the meeting this
That's Lisa McAllister.
I like Huntley's idea.
She's the one that was talking. You asked a lot of questions. Blonde hair. About the falls? Yeah. To her left, behind the
Just trying to get everybody's names.
Mary Howe. Passed
But it's
it
not a state park.
Closing it off for everybody. So that's What's that? Mary Howe. She's got that LOD in there.
I have names like Blue Scarf, Fleece Lady, Flannel Man.
Well, and then tough guy. Tough guy. Tough guy number 2. Right, Moose Hunter and Quiet Talker.
Do you guys want to quickly go over Margaret and George's plan, or put that off to another?
I can be super fast.
Okay.
And did you get a copy, Pam?
Of what?
George and I got together last week and expanded on the ideas that Mike and George and I all came up with at, I don't know, the January
They did
meeting
this
maybe?
embarrass us on our falls.
Well,
Interpret
proof
it.
is in the pudding. You can do all of this, but it comes down to what's on the signs. See?
Signs here.
So I tried to organize it, even though I had so many ideas, it was hard to structure it. But I'll start with the interpretive signs. So trying to keep them all to a central theme of how natural history and cultural history interact with each other. So like the logging uses and the present, up to the present day recreation, skiing, hiking, whatever.
So I am impressed.
So, what's that?
I said I am impressed.
So the 11 interpretive signs, and depending on budget and how much we can afford, we can get rid of some of them. But the 5 cellar bowls will all have, ideally, a posted thing that has an old photo and a brief history. George is just like a font of information about all these places. It was really fun chatting with him. So he, I think, is going to be in charge of those. And then, Mike, maybe we can divvy up the
6
other
through
ones.
11.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe you, I don't care, whatever you want. Log landing, Hall's Ledge.
One thing we probably should do is we should check in with Dexter and his 4th graders.
Yeah.
About, because currently there's still that the nature trail that they have up, so there's still like numbers posted places.
Right.
And I think we should make sure that we don't either have competing things or confusing things, where people are like walking around like, wait, is this part of this
Well, and his
thing, or is this part of this
Maybe
thing?
color code or something like
Yeah.
that. you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. His plan goes down the Dana Place.
Yeah.
So his could still be up there. We would just have to make it really clear and code it somehow.
Or just to have one thing that has all of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they need to be separate things or if we just. But like if some of those, I have not really paid that much attention because those sheets are never there.
They're never there.
So, but if some of those sheets cover some of these things, then
And I think they do.
yeah, then I think we would look at like combining those things just so it doesn't look. I don't know.
Yeah.
What is the Carternet Spur Road log landing?
The one that goes like the orchards right here, Hall's Ledge
the
keeps
new-
going up
the
to
newest.
right. That,
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I just tried to pick one that was on town land.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Roughly.
That's cool.
Yeah, we just thought. I mean, the one that's at Boggy Brook is more like obvious and interesting, but that's not on town land.
Right. I mean, you could
Exactly.
even discuss briefly what our forest plan is of the logging and why they're,
Yeah.
so it's like, oh, they log up here, but it's a managed.
And I was thinking if we had a numbered walk, to have one out on Boggy Brook is just like away from everything.
Right.
Is Boggy Brook the same as Bog Brook?
No, Boggy Brook is the Forest
Boggy
Service
Brook is the
road.
road.
Okay. Oh, it's the road.
Bog, that's just a hiking trail.
Yeah, okay.
It's so confusing.
I just call it the Forest Service Road. So.
Yeah. The whole thing. I was talking to somebody the other day about the whole thing about like when you go from Quail Trail to Dana to Hutton to UST. That was you. That's what I was talking about, right? Yeah. This is ridiculous.
I
They need to like.
just break it down. I go, did you take the first trail on the right if you walk downhill from the new parking lot? Like, yes. Yeah. Okay, Marsh Brook.
You're good.
No, it's
That's another one of
the Marsh,
points.
Dana,
Yeah. Wait, but
Putnam.
first, Mike, which one do
Sorry.
you want to write?
I tried to get paid.
I can. It doesn't matter. I'll do any of them.
She was
I probably can't do 11 because I don't know that much about previous agricultural uses, but I don't know if you can either.
I mean, I was going to write a general, like, this is an apple orchard. People lived here and grew apples. I'll do the orchard, and then I'll do some natural history, interpretive science. Do you want to do the log landing? Because I really don't want to do that.
Yeah, I can do log landing, and I can do maybe one or two of the general natural history sciences.
All right, I'll do one natural history in the orchard. You do two natural history?
Yeah, and the log landing.
And then Hall's Ledge is basically, Tom suggested that we could get somebody to just take a picture on a really clear, beautiful day and then label them.
I mean, all we have is one kiosk, so.
Maybe. Yeah, and then maybe want it.
Maybe we'll move path.
I'm gonna throw my list out and just restart it with Dutch pads.
One interpretive, then the orchard, and you're doing
Can I borrow your pen?
two natural. Okay, so moving on to what?
She's got lots of pens over there.
Can we, this might sound strange, can we keep them simple and natural sounding and not, what's the word I'm looking for? Not like, just like exciting. That's not the right word. There's a couple that seem a little dramatic on the walk. I did the walk the other day, I read a couple, I was like, I feel like these are dramatic. I feel like it was just surprising to me. And the person I was with read them, and I was like, what?
Is it the one about the Mystery House Foundation?
I don't know, I just felt like it was a little dramatic.
Like embellish flourishments?
Yeah, just less natural history and more exciting. It seemed exciting.
Alright,
Trying to
so
be
like-
exciting.
so maybe murder and
kids.
mayhem?
Well, it felt like this would be exciting if kids were walking around reading it.
Okay.
Which is fine, I guess I like
So
kids.
not quite as theatrical.
Yes,
I
yeah.
do have a flowery prose. I wrote this. I do have a flowery prose. I probably know which one you're talking about. It's the
I got
Mystery
really
House
excited and jumped around.
The one about stone walls erupting. Through New England
Well, see,
woods.
they were read out loud to me. I didn't actually read them, and I heard it, and I was like, no, she's making this up. She's like, no, this is, and I was like, oh. I was like, well,
That's what.
maybe I didn't help. I guess I didn't help out on that one either.
Okay, so moving on, trail signs, additional ones and changes to current ones. So for additional signs, we need a Hall's Ledge trail sign at the junction with the Orchard Trail, so that when people get there, they know to keep going up. On the Bog Brook hiking sign near the parking lot, the one that the Forest Service already has, Tom has already talked to them about just adding Hall's Ledge Trail with an arrow. So when people park at the new parking lot,
Right.
they'll see that it says that way,
When
and
you
then
new parking lot, you mean our new parking lot?
Yes.
yeah. And then so that they know to go around the corner, and then potentially, depending on if we rotate the kiosk or not, maybe have one just like straight ahead, so when they get out of their car and see the arrow pointing this way,
Yeah.
when they come back out on the road, if they miss the giant kiosk that's right there, they would see like straight ahead that points them uphill towards the gate. And then at the junction with the UST trail, this is on Forest Service land, not Prospect Farm, but if people walk out there, I don't know. The Dana Place Trail and the Hutmans Trail don't have a sign right there, so it's like the old logging road goes up on the right and it says UST, which is it's a ski
tour
sign.
trail.
But it doesn't say anything about the other one.
Right.
And
Going
you
straight,
might just think that that was an
I think
old
there's a
logging
tiny
road.
Hutman sign there. I think it's a tiny.
It's an old
I
one.
looked on
I think
Friday.
it's a little one. I thought it's a
There's a
little
little one. There's a little one on Marsh Brook /Hutmans. I know that.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
There's
I don't know
one
about
when you come out of the Dana Place Trail and
Right.
hit the Quail Trail.
Right.
In front of you, there's one there.
Right, but
I'll check again.
I think
didn't
you're
see
right.
it.
I don't think there is one after QS at the intersection of
Yeah.
QST. Is that what it is? QST? UST?
I know that this would be. I know that this would never happen, but it'd be nice at some point to talk to ski touring about like trying to coalesce.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know. This is a side tangent.
No,
but just,
that's a point on here.
It's really confusing.
Yep. I guess I
Can
see this kind of becoming two distinct projects, and maybe we should decide to bite off one of them and then move on the other one. I had kind of also, to back up yet even further, I and Seed foresaw falls being our first priority for the summer, so like do the planting, if we get permission to do all the stuff we have been talking about, which we maybe could talk about in private now that we haven't discussed it, but I saw the falls being first and Prospect Farm being second, so maybe if we broke Prospect Farm into two parts, it would be like one of them could get kicked into 2017 or whatever.
Or could there be some, cooperative effort with JSTF?
Yeah.
It's, you know.
And I kind of see with that, we would need, maybe as part of our Prospect Farm management plan, which we would have to do a lot of work on if we're going to go ahead with a conservation easement, I think we'd actually have to agree on what we're doing and how we're managing it. For real rules about trail signs and who's responsible for what and our standard to have them. Like the Forest Service issues like this 8-page book that standardizes trail signs on the Forest Service. So we would need to come up with our abbreviated version of who's responsible for what and what style. Like, do we allow ski touring to keep their gray with yellow letters, and do we follow the Forest Service with yellow letters for our own personal signs? And, like all of that as the landowner, I think we get that ability to, and then how do we work with Jackson to like blaze stuff? Can we maybe even condense the names?
We should just have our own blazes, our own trail names, and our own signs that are different than the Forest Service and ski
feels
touring.
that whatever Jackson Ski Touring does should be what we choose, because it's our land and the town decides. So that's his feeling.
I think it makes more sense. I mean, if the Forest Service has a trail that continues on for another 8 miles called something else or whatever, I think it makes sense for it to be.
Well, yeah, I think maybe he meant more specifically ski touring.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
And with the trail signs discussion, sorry, Margaret, if I'm distracting from the other stuff.
It's on there. I didn't realize it was actually on there. It's bullet.
You guys are just skipping ahead. That's all there is to it.
Sorry, I'll let you keep going. I'll keep my thoughts.
Okay, so the changes would be to move the kiosk out to the corner. I think George mentioned a couple months ago that his son was up there, and just based on seeing the gate, it says like no entry by no motor vehicle entry or something. But his son was like, "Am I allowed to go past the gate, or like, am I allowed?" So if we don't move the kiosk, some kind of welcome to Prospect Farm. Small sign on the gate might be helpful. And if we do that, then the number 2 sign about I guess the Hall's Ledge Trail thing is still happening, so that doesn't matter. All signs should be the same everywhere. Otherwise, it's confusing as heck. At the junction of the Quail Trail, as you're going up and the first cellar hole is on your right, there's a sign on the left that says Quail Trail, and it has like the paw on it for dog-friendly ski trail. I think that sign is a little hard to see where it is right now, particularly because the Halls Ledge Trail sign is on the side with the cellar hole. It's next to the cellar hole.
Corner thing.
So either we put them both in the same spot and have them move out closer to the central road, or move the Quail Trail sign over. I mean, but then it's on the opposite side of the road. So I don't know how we would do it, but I think that junction is worth just taking a look at.
Yeah, and I think this gets to where we should come down with, we just say this is how we do signs in town and try to get Jackson Ski Touring on board.
I think they follow our lead. We say this is how we want the signs, this is where we want them, I mean.
And I feel like Prospect Farm is weird because it's got basically 3 distinct trail networks. It's got the 2 actual hiking trails, it's got the cross-country trails, and then it's got the logging roads. And they're all mismatched in different ways.
Next point, I feel pretty strongly about this. We should have mileages posted for Halls Ledge. The current map that we made up there has the distances in feet. I don't think most people are going to be like, oh, 5,280 feet is a mile, so I've got this many miles to go.
It actually says the length of the trail in feet.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't even get. But like the scale even on the map is in feet.
Right.
So if somebody like uses their finger to try and they're going to be like, oh, it's 900 feet long to get to
change the centimeters.
The cellar hole.
There you go.
So. Long-term goals. Ultimately, I would really like to see that map changed. I know that we just did it and it feels like kind of a failed investment, but I just don't think it's the greatest map. I think we could clarify the trail names. George really felt that the area of the map that's dedicated to Prospect Farm is very small. And I tend to agree with him. I think it's good that it shows the context of the broader picture because there are so many other trails that go outside of Prospect Farm, but maybe just have it zoomed in a little bit because there's kind of just a lot of not empty, but like.
But that's what they always do on plans. If you look at a surveyor's plan, they always have up on the right-hand corner, they've got, the parcel that's of interest is small in the big area, but then the parcel that's of interest is what's actually the big, the big part.
Yeah.
So that might be how you use both of them. The one that you've got now, but
but then just have
a more detailed one of the actual parcel.
Yeah, that would work for me. There's no elevational information on that map, so I think if we include elevations and distances, that would be probably the most helpful piece of information. George thought perhaps we could expand it to show the timber management plan. I don't really know very much about the timber management plan, but some kind of, I don't know if that would maybe fit in more with the log landing interpretive sign.
When you say do you mean like an overlay of what we're doing, or just a text saying what the plan is?
I don't really know what the management plan looks like, to be honest.
It's a big fat book. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's what
but maybe he meant to show, like we were talking the other day about
what's recently been cut, what could be cut.
Yeah, like this was harvested in this time, and this is set to be next, or
show a small map that showed maybe the history of the areas that have been logged over the last.
Because that would also tie into the natural history descriptions of what's growing back now at this point.
Yeah. I kind of see, I guess I would see that being like a backside, like a separate map or something on the back.
Yeah.
And I would definitely like to see the big map be just for hiking and orienting yourself to hiking and limited everything else interpretation. And I'm kind of picturing the maps at National Forest trailheads where they don't have, I don't think they have contours. It's basically like really simple, visually simple maps that are like clear of large areas accessed in those.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's okay that there's not mileage or elevation on it because all the hiking trails are on the AMC maps.
But I think a lot of people go up there not.
Yeah, but that's like anywhere though, right? Like, I mean, any of the Forest Service trail, you can go to the Forest Service trailhead and they don't have. I mean, I think it would make sense to put Halls Ledge on the, like, if it was on the Forest Service map where the parking is, because that has, you know, whatever, it's 7/10 of a mile on the Bog Brook Trail to the Wildcat River Trail, and then whatever 2.1 or whatever it is to Hall's Ledge. That makes sense to me.
Right. So you think it would be enough just to have it on the sign, not on the map?
I think so. 'Cause, I mean,
I would be okay with that.
in the winter, ski touring has it in kilometers. Because cross-country skiers use the metric system for some reason. I'm getting that.
Because it's Scandinavian.
Nordic.
Running,
yes.
Running's all. Except for.
But then the hiking trails are on the AMC maps, and I think that's pretty well covered. I don't know.
I agree. I think it's a sign that says where it points to Hall's Ledge and gives a broad mileage, and you can base things
off of that.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that it doesn't have like.
What I discussed with the Forest Service was a 3-line sign, so it's the standard like Hall's Ledge Trail underline, and then the first line it says Hall's Ledge with an arrow pointing in the right direction with the mileage, and the second sign says Route 16 mileage, arrow in the correct direction. So if you parked at the town parking lot, you would know how far the trail goes to its main point and how far it is the whole way to Route 16. And that's what I discussed with them.
I can't even remember, is there still a trail sign on the Route 16 side?
Yeah, there is. I mean,
it must be off the road a little ways.
It's stepped down. It's all like that.
I've hiked
erosion stone.
Yeah, I've hiked it before, but I can't ever remember where it is.
It's supposedly like down by the bridge.
Right. It's down.
I've never stopped and looked at it, but
it's not a super fun trail to hike. I hiked it one side.
It's steep and
it's one of those trails where it's like you want to decommission something, you can probably
put it on the list of Jackson wonder trails.
Oh yeah. All right.
Sorry.
Have one more minute for that.
I'll just throw this out there because George was concerned about it. The currently labeled USFS Carter Notch Road is and the Spur Road are on town land. They're not U.S. Forest Service roads.
Say that again?
It's labeled USFS Carter Notch Road when you're walking up the road towards the orchard, and then the one that goes to the right is called the Carter Notch Spur Road on that map, USFS Carter Notch Spur Road, and
they're all
they're all on town land.
On which map? I mean the one at the
one that's up there now, and neither one is Forest Service.
So that's where you have the Boggy Brook going to the right.
Yeah, and I presume he got those names off of a digital file from the Forest Service. But I don't know. That's probably what they call it in there, because they built the road.
Other long-term goal, maybe, this is way down the road, construct bog bridges on Dana Place Trail.
Yeah.
To aid in walking.
That'd be great.
If we do redo the map, to maybe get Larry Garland to do it, because he's a map maker. And George came up and talked to me at the end before he left and said we should try to engage the AMC in a partnership so that we tell them what we have to offer them so that they will make us the map for free.
Larry, I didn't mention this, but I've been speaking with Larry over the last week about the map for the falls on the natural kiosk. And he is willing to do that, and I think he'll do that for free. I don't know how much he'd be willing, because he's a town resident. I asked him if he wanted to be on the board also as part of this.
That's a good person to ask.
He didn't really jump at being on the board, because I know he's on a bunch of other boards.
Well, he was on the land trust for a long time.
Yeah.
I was on with him.
So he is making one map for us for free already, and maybe we'll do another one. And
Wait, what's the one he's making for free?
The falls.
I asked him to mock up one for the falls, like a simple one of basically Valley Cross Road to the stone bridge in the village as an idea of what we would do.
It's really nice of him.
It'd be nice to be able to identify parking for
Yes.
that sort of
I
thing.
imagine it'd probably be easy for him to do Prospect Farm because he probably already has a lot of those.
Yes.
From the AMC.
Because he did them. Well, he did them.
Yeah, because he's already mapped. I mean, Bog Brook and Wildcat Rivers.
And I mean, at some point, I told him we would pay him because
right. And he updates the Jackson Ski Tour map too. So
he does. So he should have.
And didn't he do our map out here?
I don't know.
We talked about it, but he didn't do it. I don't think.
It's just
Okay, that's all. Does anybody have any changes or things that you would like to add?
Good job.
Good job.
Yes.
Very good job. And
I'll tear it apart.
I approve the use of both sides of the page.
That's actually Julie. Julie printed them for me today.
We should talk briefly about the Doublehead Trail.
Okay. Yeah, let's do other random stuff, and then get to the easements, and then get home for supper.
I'm gonna send a quick message to Megan.
Okay.
How
I
long
went
do
up
you
the
think we'll be
double
here?
hit. I went up the double hit trail. I
5
parked on the
minutes.
road. It worked
Yeah.
out
I
great.
bet we'll be here. Well, that's what.
Can we take 5
Okay.
minutes?
Oh, 5-minute break?
No, 5 minutes till we leave.
No. We have to do the easement stuff before we go. That's the only thing we have to do.
Oh, Dave and I went and did the easement at Tilney's.
Mm-hmm.
Could not get online to be able to use the monitoring report. We got yelled at. Brian, I think isn't that what did you do Tilney last year?
Got yelled at by...
Somebody did.
By somebody.
I don't know, somebody at the house.
Oh, for being on their property.
Well, we went to the door and we knocked and we waited. They didn't come. So Dave and I were just standing on the driveway looking out and just discussing, and she came out and said, you have to get off, you can't be here. And Dave tried to tell her, and she just wouldn't listen. You have to get off, you can't be here, blah, blah, blah. I looked at Dave, great, we're using my car. Probably taking my license plate down. The next year, let her set up an appointment and do it early. That's what I would say. Because I've done Tilney before and they've been very nice.
Yeah, you know...
Which one is that?
That's the...
Tilney on Carter Notch.
Yeah.
And whoever did it last year had the same experience.
Yeah, that was Margaret and I
Yeah.
when we did it.
It's the big fig one.
And she wouldn't return.
We got yelled at. They're going to the door and knocking, and then standing on the driveway and just kind of looking out at the
We did
fields.
it 2 years in a row, I think. The first year we just went, Larry said, oh, they're great. And we went, knocked on the door, and she barely let us in the house. Looked at the piece of paper from Upper Saco Valley Land Trust, and I kind of said, okay. And then the second year, she wouldn't return my phone calls ever, because I wanted to set up an appointment after the initial reaction, and she didn't return my phone calls.
Well, maybe I would say try a letter, or just even say, we're going to be here at this time. If this is inconvenient, let us know. Something like that, even. I don't know.
It's weird. It's nice.
But the thing is, it's very strange.
Okay, well, let's put the new double head.
Yes.
Your thoughts on that?
Well, I've just been having a whole bunch of people come up to me asking what's going to happen with the possible decommission of the Doublehead hiking trail. So...
Decommission of the Doublehead hiking trail?
Yeah, the new path.
So this is...
new path.
Let's see. Okay. So this is a letter that I'm bringing way later than it should have been because it got sent to the wrong address. The Forest Service is proposing to build a new Doublehead parking lot to reroute the southern third of the ski trail to meet the new parking lot. Basically, they're going to go up the road the shortest distance possible until they hit Forest Service land bordering on the road, build a new parking lot there, and then they'll make the ski trail come to that. And they're going to reroute the ski trail from the junction of the old path and the ski trail to that new parking lot. So they
old path?
Yeah, if you go up the ski
Where they split.
Where they split.
Wow.
They're
And
going to
then-
put the parking lot way up there?
No. That's where the trail's gonna. That's where they're gonna make the new trail from.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the parking lot goes uphill a little bit. Because the parking lot moves uphill, they have to completely rebuild the bottom third of the ski trail to make it have a good fall line for downhill skiing to return to the parking lot. And they also propose to close the new path, which is the trail up on the top of the hill that goes right to South Doublehead. So those are proposed actions. The comment period ended on February 12th. So
Yeah, I just went up Doublehead and I didn't get that.
So they are no longer accepting public comment.
Okay.
The assistant ranger for recreation's email address is here. You could take it, I'm sure, and try to write to him. Be like,
Right.
hey.
But are they taking the parking off Dundee? Is that the idea? Because
No,
there's
it
a...
would be on Dundee.
It would be on the
private
parking lot would be
driveway.
accessed off of Dundee, just
Okay.
uphill of where it currently is.
Okay.
And they've closed the current lot.
I am off the official record, my daughter is good friends with the district ranger's daughter, and I talked to him for an extensive long time about it the other day, and I think the machine is turning. I think the wheels are turning on it. He's not like shut it down, but he's just like it got put in there. Public comment is short. It'll probably happen.
Right, I mean, that's strange. Public comment, that's like 17 days.
He had an interesting comment. He just said, because I said, it is horribly eroded. And he's like, every trail in the White Mountains is horribly eroded. He's like, we got to decommission something. I don't know. I also know that there was a strong, Peter Minich maybe?
Yeah,
There's like
a lot of signatures.
Yeah, collected a lot of signatures. So they're going to wait and see. He told me, we'll wait and see what the public comment's like, how many people. It sounded to me like it's already happening. Like it's just gonna happen.
I mean, a decommissioned trail, it's basically decommissioned anyway. They don't do
I mean, no
anything.
one
They just
maintains. Yeah,
take
they're
away the
gonna
sign.
They take away the sign.
They take away the sign and they'll brush in the front.
Yeah.
And then my guess is that a group of dedicated Jackson people will probably brush it. And it'll be one of those things for a long time.
It'll probably
That would
look
be my
better.
guess.
We can improve it then, right?
Yeah. In the similar vein of random things we should know about, I think we talked about this before. DOT is going to rebuild the bridge on Route 16 over the Ellis River, right by Green Hill Road.
Rebuild?
Yes.
The bridge.
Yep. It's apparently on the red list, whatever that
Ooh,
is.
that's
Oh,
probably
that's the bad list. That's the fall down list.
Yeah.
Fall in list?
Yeah.
There is a meeting here in town on Thursday, March 24th at 5 p.m.
I wonder if that's going to entail a light or something like
regarding that construction project. So hopefully at least one of
What
us.
time is it at?
5 p.m.
Where?
Here.
At this, in this room?
Yep, town office. So hopefully one of us can attend that. Just
What day is it?
Thursday,
Long
the
minutes.
24th.
And I can't even tell you. Does anybody else want to be the secretary? I don't want to be the secretary anymore. I hate it.
Look,
You should put that in the minutes.
look. You won.
But I can't fully participate in the meetings because like tonight was so hard to try and like catch what everybody was saying.
But Margaret, you're really good at it.
You can go. You can just record it and then go home and then listen to it. And take
Yeah,
it
I think
in.
that's what others do.
I did it.
Really? But then that takes like another
Or we can-
7 hours of my life.
We hire a
Margaret,
person who doesn't
that's
speak,
true. That's
and they
true.
type.
Yeah.
Some people have that. They have a person who doesn't
But you know, it
take
could be
part.
worse. You could hate taking the minutes and do a bad job and people make fun of you.
Well, people were pretty impressed by my slaying tigers comment in the last minute.
In April or May, there'll be a new person, which means that they'll have to take the minutes.
Yes. Yes. Can you imagine? Okay, that'll be fun.
Okay. Any other business before we move on to easements as the last thing?
No, I can't believe this.
I was quite pleased with the turnout tonight, I have to say.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
glad so many people had.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be more, actually. I'm glad it was.
I guess we should mention that the deadline for people to apply to be on the commission is in 3 days. So far, Bill Terry is the only one who has expressed enough interest right now.
Do you know that to be true?
Yes. Well, he is the only person that has approached a member of the board, to my knowledge, to find out how to apply.
No, Liz Clark is going to apply.
Okay.
Who's that?
She lives at Spruce. She's a
Timber framer.
timber framer for
Oh.
Garland Mills.
Yeah,
Um,
her partner
We can
is.
we can do an alternate. Is
Rachel.
that possible?
Rachel.
Yeah, we could have an alternate.
That would be good.
How does that work? Do
Yeah,
they
how does
attend
that
meetings
work?
but don't vote and then vote if someone's not here?
I don't know if there's anything in the law that says that, but I think that's the way they do it on all the other boards.
Yeah. I could read, I have the RSA of, I think
There's
we all
not
do.
much there, but yeah, go
Our
take a
blue
look.
book has the RSA
Yeah.
saying how you create conservation commissions and how they're supposed to be run.
So the deadline to submit your letter to the selectmen is in 3 days, and then what happens? Do we read the letters at the April meeting?
No, we don't get them.
Selectmen.
The selectmen
choose.
And they can hold it open later, because last time when Dave
Yeah.
and I did it, we submitted our letters in a timely fashion, and the selectmen decided, no, we need more time for more people to decide if they want to show their letters of interest. And Dave and I are looking at each other going, huh, well, we're offended. Aren't we good enough?
But, so how do we make a recommendation? Do we make a recommendation?
No, they'll ask Tom. They could potentially ask Tom, but
And
pretty
Tom
much.
decides for all of us?
No, he doesn't decide for anyone. The selectmen decide. We don't have a say in.
But what will you say when they ask you?
I don't know.
That's a seal.
Wait, why? But you don't have to consult with us?
I have no idea. I know nothing about it.
Never have. Let's put it that way.
I'm gonna say that you'll probably do whatever she tells you to do. That's gonna be my
Because I'm
guess.
the secretary, damn it.
Yeah, they get to choose. It used to be hard to get in because they chose and the chairman had say.
So could we, in theory, like send them an email to be like, hey, we feel this way or this way?
Yes, I think you could.
Yeah.
Do we have to do that unanimously, or can I act on an individual basis?
I
Maybe it should
would
go through
anonymously.
It
Can I
should
just
go-
write a
it
letter
should
and
go
crayon
through
and slip it in the drawer?
I guess what I would see happening is if they asked for my opinion, I would try to call a special meeting and we'd all meet and talk about it and say something to them.
Yeah, or I don't think it's out of line if you. I don't think it's out of line if you show support for any person and the support is based upon the direction of the board.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or their special skills or their.
But in the end, I think we might be a little surprised who they choose, because I imagine they're doing some they might ask for an address. And they're like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
4.
Usually there's no choice.
A whole board
'cause they
of
have one.
non-homeowners.
But
The
usually-
squatters of Jackson.
Hey,
You're taking over.
I know. Well, I guess there is an actual legitimate thing. Like, we couldn't hang out ever.
It would always be 4.
right? You guys.
Literally couldn't hang out.
Yeah.
Unless you posted it as a meeting.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be awesome.
Town of Jackson is invited to
Me and Larry would just show up.
We're
We're like, hey,
having a
dude.
Monopoly meeting on Saturday night.
sledding party at our house.
Push Margaret's car out of the snowbank. That was a meeting. All 4 of us were there.
Yeah, we need to do something for old Larry too.
Yeah.
So it's fitting. He's passionate.
Done it for a long time.
Yeah. He's taking a beating the entire time.
Yeah, what's happened in the past besides
How come you
people?
don't get? How come you have to take a beating like Larry did?
When let me think. What did they do for Dick? He got to read a letter. He got to read like a. Did he do that? When he left?
Dick Bennett?
Yeah, he like read a letter. I remember that. That went into the minutes.
I think.
And that seemed to be like the.
Yeah.
He wrote something out.
His
It was
own like farewell address.
yes, like a farewell speech, and he.
George Washington.
You don't remember
the troops.
I remember that.
But he
No,
should
there was
email
so much
Larry.
tension
I'm gonna
between
write
those
that
two
in
that
minutes. Larry
I was just glad it-
will be sending his farewell
Yeah.
address.
Well, I think the alternative is that I think when Phil Davies left, I think we wrote something nice and it got into the minutes in the town news or something
Yeah.
like the e-news.
Yeah.
Just
We could say some of his accomplishments. and-
Yeah.
Great.
Because
Under his
he has
leadership,
done a
yeah.
lot, you know?
We'll do that at the next meeting.
Yeah.
But no,
Oh, we have to do these. So you get those forms? So, we can,
I've got the forms.
so you couldn't get online either?
We could not. I had.
So
the-
you could
I
log
tried
in,
it.
but you couldn't submit.
I
Is
could
that
no, I
correct?
could not log in. I could not submit. I had my,
no idea
I had your,
8 or 9
everything,
or something.
you know, the way you with the exact code. But it might have been because I was on my iPad. Sometimes
See?
that makes a difference.
I think you're right, because I submitted, I thought, on my computer a long time ago, and now I can't even get in.
And see, I can't get on the corporate site on my iPad, but I can on my laptop. So I think this has something to do with it.
So I've got Larry's information.
Well,
Not true.
this actually raised some questions for me about how we have them. These are all just copies of old ones.
Oh, you've got them. You're organized.
Well, these are
Good job.
copies
Do you have
of.
the old ones?
I've been doing it since 2007 or
Which
8.
ones do you have?
I've got Highland.
Okay, so you don't have Tony.
No.
Okay.
But I'm wondering if we've been filling them out correctly. But I guess if they're not
I could go look at
complaining
the
about it, fill them
town
out.
records. We can go fill out the rest of this stuff.
Yeah, and if you want to, you could, I guess, fill them out and I'll mail them to them, or I can try to enter them later.
February.
Well, so I can take this and do this at home? Or do I
it'd
do
be-
this right now?
Could you do it right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, what was the date? Not this past Friday, but the Friday before.
You just write a date, and no one's going to check into that part.
If it's in 2015, it's better.
Yeah, 2015. Throw down a November. November 20, you do like Thanksgiving.
December 31st.
Too bad. Monitor.
I need two.
Yeah.
I basically monitor it every day.
I actually need two because
Okay.
mine's a double whammy.
Luckily, I have two. And I guess my brief thought that this all raised is that there are 2 properties for which the town owns the easement, in which we do no monitoring whatsoever, including Lori Gabriel's and whatever the other one is that I'm forgetting.
The one over on Carter Notch Road.
Yep.
What about the Boulder? I mean, that's owned by the town. That's not a CE.
Yeah.
That's okay. Just okay.
Just easement. So I think we ought to.
So it's
since
Lori
we-
Gabriel's and what's the other one?
I don't remember. But I think we ought to next year
Something Harvard.
also monitor those.
Yeah, I agree.
Because
We should make a list.
yeah, because they basically update that spreadsheet that's in the filing cabinet. Because we, from my this all led to me having a better understanding of conservation easements that we are legally responsible as the owner of the conservation easement to do the annual monitoring. And on some of them, we are legally responsible to pass it on to SPNF.
So does it count if we contacted the landowner and she told us to go away?
Yeah, I think
Isn't there a spot on there that says landowner did not respond? That's
No,
what
she
I think that's what
responded.
we
Yeah. And I don't know if she's the landowner or if she might be the daughter, maybe. She was younger. She was.
You get the daughter then.
Yeah, I think that's who that was.
Yeah, I would maybe put, was contacted in person, and then under the additional information or concerns, you could write like, would not answer a phone and told us to go away when we knocked on the door.
Would not let us monitor. No.
Locked boundaries, none.
I mean, we know they're not developing it because you can see the whole property up and down from the road.
Locked road frontage sign.
Is this the only thing that's left?
Yes.
Can I make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
No, I'm sorry.
Well, what are we waiting
For
for?
them to fill out their forms.
Oh,
And there has to be 4 of us, so we can't wait. I thought about that. Because we've already done it, so then we just leave. And then it's like, oh,
like, can I get a getaway car?
So we have to stay.
So close.
Come on, guys. I'm just kidding. Take your time.
Do you guys have any thoughts on the discussions?
Maybe like once the... maybe once everything shuts down.
I'm glad that people came and expressed their
That's just
opinions.
2E.
I think we just need to write a proposal and vote on it. I'm into the easement for sure.
I am too. I was surprised. I would have thought that most people here would hear about that. But it seemed like the falls were the bigger issue, and that was
Yeah.
surprising to me. Me too. I did
I
not
also
think that would be...
expected maybe more agitation about the easement, but like it seemed like
Yeah. Well, I think Upper Snuggle Valley Land Trust has a pretty good reputation in town. I mean, I think for the most part.
Yeah, there's a group that they don't like to hear the name.
I don't have the telephone number or the
Okay.
exact address, but I filled it out as best I could with my little comment at the bottom.
Okay.
But like I said, I think
Okay.
maybe it's just more a pointed letter. That's too bad because I had a good experience when I went there before.
Yeah. Maybe we can come up with like a stock letter that we send to
Yeah.
every person for whom we hold the conservation easement.
Right.
do I really have to include every time someone spoke tonight?
No, I don't think
I
you
mean,
could like.
the minutes are 4 pages long.
I think you could
Single space.
Just summarize some of the
express
statements.
the general sentiment of the.
Yeah.
Something I.
It ranged though. It ranged between people saying there's not enough parking to people saying, there are too many people using it. So I like that. That's good. That means it gives us leeway.
Something I haven't thought about on the conservation easement, which I thought probably would be possible, is we could give the conservation easement to the town rather than a third party. It would be like another avenue. If people are worried about it, it still restricts the ability of the town to do anything, but it.
That's what we were going to do with...
The town owns everything.
Oh, yeah.
The
But
town-
that's still,
Hayes
that's
Farm.
kind of tantamount to doing a deed restriction, because then they can, see the thing is when the town gives it to itself, it can take it off itself.
Can it? I guess that would be my question.
If you put it on, you can take it off. I mean, there's just been some new law that came out about putting deed restrictions in people's deeds, and so I'm having to do that for a client now. So, it's getting harder if you follow those restrictions.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you put it on, you can take it off.
So what we have now is essentially a deed restriction, the way it was given to the
Yes,
town. Okay.
it's a restriction, and if the town were to transfer the property, it's subject to that restriction because it would be in the records, it'd be in the registry of probate.
Oh, I see.
So even though it's not on any deed, people do know about it. So it's
Yeah.
of notice, and it's also, like I said, in the registry of probate. But it doesn't mean that somebody couldn't petition the court to get rid of it, to say this is no longer applicable. It's now in private hands. It's not a park. It's So that's why conservation easement would be a good idea. Because you just don't know what the law is going to be
And
down the road.
could the town, while owning it, do something against the deed restriction?
I think they could, potentially go to the court. They could maybe find Baker heirs and ask them if they could release it. I mean, there's possibilities.
Okay.
I mean, they could say that there's some overriding reason, public reason why they need to do something different. This is where they need to put their low-income housing. You know?
On the thing that Linda sent, that was an example that they used. That the town can look at a greater use.
Yeah.
Like there's clauses, like I guess there's court precedent for greater use for arguing that, like like cheaper housing or
Sure.
whatever it may
Sure.
be.
And if somebody files a petition and nobody objects to it, you know, generally the court's going to, you know, approve it.
Yeah.
I don't.
Would you be willing to write something with your legal hat on as part of this process as we go forward? Or should we have like the town attorney, I don't know, or someone else with knowledge in real estate law?
Also, would it be like a conflict of interest coming from Pam?
Yeah, probably town attorney would probably be, probably be best.
Okay.
But I mean, definitely conservation easement would be, much better. You wouldn't be able to change that, except like Linda said, under very limited circumstances. I mean, I have done an amendment to one of the easements, but it was very nominal, and I think they did have to go through the AG's office to get that approved.
Yeah, I don't see a downside to conservation easement.
Well, I think what they're saying is that they don't want to lose their flexibility or their options or whatever. But if, because the thing is, if they like the way it is now and you freeze it the way it is now, then they're actually protecting the things that might go away in the future, like motorized vehicles and hunting.
There was a shift.
That would be an easy sell.
I think you did a really good job, and I think that you guys all did a really good job. And, basically keeping the tone good and all that.
I'm forgetting his name. Patch. David. I think it was David Patch. Richard Patch. Right. He could have went either way, and I think he would be a good. He would have the good energy in a group of people that we might otherwise not.
Is he the hunting for 30 years guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So he was basically saying, you guys are talking about leaving it the way it is, or if that's how she wants it to be, and that's a really good point. I think maybe we should try to look into her statement more and say, yeah, that is important to us, and this is what we feel, what do the town people feel she was implying in
It's so
that
funny.
statement.
So, I don't know if you guys noticed, Anthony Scalia passed away, and he was an originalist, and I'm thinking, he's an originalist when it comes to the will. It's like he wants to interpret the will. It actually has 6 words. Interpret it exactly the
6
way it
words with a
was
sticky
at
note
that
over
time.
3 of them.
I was
that
thinking
time.
about that as just thinking of this whole thing. It's like, funny.
It's pretty funny. Yeah.
All right, so we've got all of the conservation easements. I will make sure they get sent in. I've got Larry's one that I'll fill out for him.
Okay.
And that does it for this year.
Excellent.
Maybe next year we'll do it in July,
Yes.
early on. Or we can actually do it whenever. It's
Yeah.
2016.
It's nice to do it when the leaves are down and you can, mine's big.
I'll pass on the feedback about the website.
It didn't work. But like I said, I think it's the iPad. Bet you
I
that's
couldn't
it.
get in either.
iPad?
iPad.
Yeah.
I think I use my Mac too.
Okay. Apple.
A motion respectfully submitted to adjourn the meeting at 7:29 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Later.
Excellent.
And adjourned.
Great.
Thanks, Hank.